You should make her big on the.
Hello and welcome to the Austin Bitcoin Meetup. We have Andrea Castillo with us tonight. She's a research analyst at Mercatus and a PhD student. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and got her here. She's going to talk to us about this article she recently published. Bitcoin is great, but it won't cure our monkey brains. So I think everybody was reading it before, so do you want to tell us a little bit about what inspired the article and what kind of some of the background on it?
Sure. So first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak. It's nice to see some of you kind of more in person. I've talked to you online before. Yeah, and I've been excited for this conversation this week, so cool. Glad to be here. So what kind of motivated this article? So I've been following Bitcoin since around 2008, more as just an observer and kind of fellow traveler. I wasn't like super hardcore into it. But then when I got a job at Mercatus in 2013 as a research assistant, Bitcoin is one of the project areas that we're doing a lot of research in. So I started taking the day-to-day a lot more seriously. I mean, I'm paying a lot more attention and just seeing in a really short span of time how Bitcoin moved from this kind of internet hobby, pie in the sky kind of idea to something that was like real and being developed in real time. So the culture, you know, is immediately affected by that, and that has implications for, you know, development in the future, outcomes in like a macro sense. So yeah, so while I'm watching all this happening, you know, I have my economist hat on, and I'm thinking about Bitcoin as a money unit, just in terms of like political economy. What are the implications for states? But then, you know, the other side is this culture that's being developed is also like it's a dynamic effect. It then has implications for the first kinds of questions we might want to answer. So what we saw this year was a kind of Bitcoin euphoria, right? So now that everybody thinks, well, most people like think it's at least interesting and a technology worth looking into, that's a good thing because we've all dealt with annoying like haters for a long time that just had, you know, bad reasons to not like it and biases, whatever. But then I started noticing kind of the opposite problem, where people were just saying Bitcoin could do all of these crazy things that we're going to have, you know, this Bitcoin 2.0 kind of like robot economy where everything's just going to be programmed and, you know, we're just going to like write the programs, the robots are going to like transact and we'll just kind of call it a day. Or, you know, the proliferation of like altcoins that are supposed to have specific uses in app coins, right, the next level. You know, and these people are peddling these different projects, as is good, but then the downside of that is people who maybe don't know a lot about it were getting involved in it, sometimes putting serious money into it, and, you know, sometimes they get burned. So that was kind of an interesting development that made me rethink some of, you know, the reasons we like Bitcoin: decentralization. We don't need to trust in monopolies anymore. But then as the Bitcoin economy, the ecosystem was developing, you see a return to a lot of this centralization. You see people trumping, you know, saying they have a panacea for every kind of social issue and that their coin is going to be the one to do it. And then you have people in the media, even like specialized media like CoinDesk, right? They're just like repeating all of this without much speculation, right? Without much scrutiny. And you have a cottage industry of Bitcoin evangelists that are saying like, this is the next big thing, get excited. Which is, you know, exciting on the one hand, and I definitely like was part of that problem, I think, for a while too. As I've learned, you know, I've said, oh wow, some of the stuff I thought was like a no-brainer in the past is actually more difficult than I thought, and I need to think the implications through a little more. But then I just saw this happening like all the time, and so yeah, that's what led to this article. The day before it was published, there was an article in The Guardian that was talking about like the coming anarchy on the internet. Which on the one hand, I'm like, awesome, like, cool, cover it in a good way. But then on the other, like, there were some parts of the article that I was like a little, about, they would talk about how we need to remove the need for any trust. We're just going to program that away. And I thought that was putting the cart before the horse a little bit. And I think we get really excited about technology and we see like all these use cases, and if you're thinking in kind of an engineering mindset, like that's what you focus on. But as an economist, I also consider kind of human interactions, institutions, psychology. So I started to think about like, are we just getting too excited? Maybe we need to step back and like look at the reality and what Bitcoin can do, and what we're just kind of biased, like mood affiliated to kind of think. So this is where the monkey brains comes in. So basically, just because the protocol itself is designed to be decentralized, peer-to-peer, all these good things we like, the way people are using it is not. This has to do a lot with just mass adoption, maybe before it should have happened. People who don't know a lot about the technology, they're going to go to Coinbase, right? Like, why would you not? Like, you're not going to, your mom or your sisters or, your friends are not going to necessarily learn everything right away. They just hear Bitcoin is cool and, okay, I'll sign up for this service, and they don't think about it anymore. And I think a lot of that is rooted in just our psychology. So there's a rich literature in behavioral economics founded by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Daniel Kahneman wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow, and so he talks about like the ways that evolution selected for our brain was not optimal, right? Like it wasn't like a god sitting and designing our perfect brain. There are trade-offs that we make, and some of those are common cognitive biases. So this goes back to kind of the Coinbase like centralization issue. We say we want trustless exchange, but then people don't think twice about just allowing a third party to have their private key. And actually, an article that I saw the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute recently posted by Nick Szabo on microtransactions kind of related. So this came out after I already published it, which I saw it earlier, because it's great. It's talking about, so a lot of people are very excited about microtransactions, right? Micropayments and how Bitcoin, in a technical sense, can take away the costs for that. And that's great. But what Nick Szabo says is, you don't consider the human element, which is that when we're making decisions, like when we're faced with a microtransaction, the actual technical transaction cost is not what's really preventing that equilibrium from taking hold. Is really our cognitive transaction cost. It's like when you are having to make so many small decisions about so many like tiny amounts of money, that's like wearing down your brain, that's wearing down your cognitive optimality, and so you're going to see worse and worse decisions. And so what Nick Szabo says is that's really the cost that's preventing this from taking off. So that's a really good example, I think, of this kind of like monkey brain versus like techno-utopia dichotomy. Like, we're there in spirit with the utopian ideas, but then we need to come back and think like, okay, what is the reality of like our cognitive biases and whatever limitations that are brought by that. So the second part of my argument is, I'm getting a little feedback right now. Sorry. Second part of my argument is basically just about human sociality. So when we talk about the need to remove trust, like that's great when you're talking about, oh, I don't have to trust the Federal Reserve anymore, or I don't have to use this monopoly service that the state says I have to. Great. Where I think some people take it a bridge too far is they say, therefore, we need to remove any need for trust at all in transactions ever. And so there's like a number of solutions proposed, like you could have strange multi-signature transactions set up and combined with some kind of programmed like Oracle or whatever distributed autonomous, whatever they're calling it now. And it's a tool that can be used like to some extent, but I think it's a little, what's the word, hubristic maybe, to think that we can just completely remove the need for human trust and replace it with these like technical tools. And I think really what that's going to end up doing is people who are more vulnerable to making these like bad decisions are going to be the ones who are ripped off more often, right? Because they're not in a network where they like they don't have people that they can trust to tell them like good information that they can act upon. They're just seeing digits or seeing like prices or however the system is set up. That's going to lead to more bad decisions by people we might want to help, and they might actually end up getting taken advantage of. So my general conclusion, in a post-Bitcoin world, I think that trust will be more important than ever. I think it's great as a tool that we can use to transact with people we trust more. But I think it's wrong to think of it as just this way to completely remove all human error in transacting. And I think it also leaves a lot of opportunity on the table. I think Bitcoin is a great tool to allow people who know how to get shit done to do it. And I think I kind of hinted at this at the end of the article, but this might have been too controversial for the umlaut. But I've been thinking a lot about what's the inequality picture going to look like? So in a world where your word is your bond, right? And there's no excuses for did you do it or not? That means you're going to get paid or not. The kinds of people who are very high IQ and have high conscientiousness, I think, are going to be more likely to amass more wealth more easily because those transaction costs have gone away. Whether or not we like it, a lot of those transaction costs in the form of taxes, inflation, a lot of people do like that, and it's something they have right now, right? Welfare benefits. What does a world where that doesn't exist look like, and how can we preempt it, handle it? Will it be a problem at all? I don't know. So I guess that's my take on this. I don't know how you guys structure these hangouts, but I'm cool with either asking any questions or answering any questions about this or anything else, or if this is totally boring, we could talk about whatever you guys want. But yeah, I'm happy to hear your thoughts.
Well, this is only our second one, so we're still trying to figure out the structure. I had a question, and then we're just going to turn it over to the audience. So the question I had is, it sounds like there are two opposite types of errors happening right now. People are putting trust where it doesn't belong, and they're also failing to recognize that there are things they should trust, and so they're trying to eliminate trust that should exist.
Right.
Is that a good characterization?
Yep, that's a great dichotomy. Good job.
So it's about that Aristotelian mean, right? That's what we don't have at the present.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me turn around to the. So does anyone else have any questions?
So what do you think are some of the basic ways of developing these communities of trust where people are transacting with Bitcoin on a regular basis?
Mm-hmm.
And attracting the average person to using it.
Perfect. I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I meant to bring that up in my speech or whatever, but I did not. Okay, so thank you. So another part of the reason that I started thinking about this is I've been lurking over the past few months in the Bitcoin Assets channel in IRC. I forget why I first stumbled over there, but I saw it was happening, and I was just oh, this is kind of interesting. I wrote a paper. It's forthcoming from Mercatus on a lot of the Bitcoin stock exchanges and derivatives and whatever. And so I saw that the IRC trading was going on, but I didn't really think about it. It's just in a footnote, whatever, which is a shame because after the paper went out, I started seeing how the trading actually happened. So this is a really small group of I don't know, maybe 100 regulars, maybe 70 or so, and they're there and they get to know each other, their skills, what they're good at. If somebody needs somebody to do work for them or has a project idea, they might get there to just pitch it or ask for references or even say anybody here want to do this. And yeah, it seems to work for them. In my article, I say I don't know how well this web of trust kind of model would scale. It seems to work really well with a small group of people. So it's the Dunbar's number thing, right? So it's 150 apes were in our tribe. I'm not sure how much farther you can push the web of trust model beyond that, because then information, I don't know, it could maybe. But anyway, so that's an example of it happening in real time. It's not bulletproof. So somebody on my article wrote about the fact that Brendan Shavers had a very, very high web of trust score, and so they're haha, that means it doesn't work. Well, technically the web of trust is not saying this person is trustworthy. It's saying this person has this number of connections with people that you trust, and it's ranked on 1 to 10. So like if I just know your name, I can say, okay, this is who this person is, and rank them 1. If it's like my business partner that I've done business with for 20 years, I'll give them a 10. That doesn't mean that, you know, he's a worthwhile a 10, like he's a 10 trustworthy. It just means like you have that connection and you will vouch for him to that magnitude. So it's not perfect, but I think it's kind of interesting. I'm enjoying watching it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I was gonna maybe get her thoughts on like what her views are on the post-Bitcoin world, like she was talking about in the beginning. So she was asking, or no, she was getting at, you know, kind of how in the current system there's like a redistribution of wealth, where there's like a welfare state. And do you think that that problem can be solved through like purely philanthropic means? You know, in a Bitcoin economy?
Yeah, I have no idea, right? I would like to think so. So in American history, you know, private charities, civil society associations, and like churches like did a fine job. So part of the problem is welfare before the like progressive technocratic state was not thought of as like, oh, we need to just make sure they're comfortable. Welfare was supposed to be like not pleasant. You're supposed to disincentivize people from being there all the time. Now, as the states gain more power, it's turned into obviously a tool of control, and you know, for more votes, they give people more stuff, and then it's very hard to take that stuff away. I don't know how that's going to be replicated. I don't know. It's hard, and it's not just like, oh, the same old like people are poor, right? Like, look at the future of the economy. Like, so I think more and more people are going to have zero marginal product in their labor, right? I don't know a way to get around that. And then, you know, at a certain point, like you don't want just like rows of like angry, starving people in the street. So like, let's say there was like Andrea's perfect Bitcoin world where like only the producers get the value and they don't have to apologize to anybody, right? Like, still you'd have an incentive to like make sure that you're not being attacked by like barbarians. So I don't know. That's an interesting question to think about, but I have no idea how that would happen.
Do you think it's not going to be possible for us to know what jobs people will do in the future? Just like if you went to the middle of the 19th century when 90% of the population was involved in farming, they would not even be able to imagine the types of jobs that we do today. Do you think we could see something similar in a post-Bitcoin singularity?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on?
Totally. I mean, yeah, that's the comparative advantage story, right? And I hope so, right? That's the upshot. That's like I missed something. I don't know.
I think our audio is delayed. That's what's going on.
I think it's lagging. Yeah. Do you want to try restarting or?
How about Napoleon just ask his question?
Yeah.
There's a bit of a latency here in this chat.
What do you think about the idea that you know, Zappo and other debit card issuers and Coinbase and things like this, that these services will continue to exist and service kind of the like the muggles, like the normal people, and that Bitcoin will be just the elite. One of the opinions that kind of goes around Bitcoin assets quite a lot. Yeah. Necessarily a bad thing from an economic.
Yeah, there's like a bifurcation. So what I wonder about with that is like what what is keeping something like a Coinbase going, right? So it seems to me that a lot of that is based on like the legacy financial system that people are just used to, and you can't really compete in this space without kind of playing by their game on some level. So, I mean, if USG manages to like cling on and keep living for a couple of years, maybe, but I don't know, maybe Coinbase, like, maybe that goes away when USG goes away too, but there's still some other, like, level. Could be, yeah.
From your like economic training and in your kind of economic position, are you familiar with Daniel's hyper Bitcoinization proposition?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what do you think of that?
I think about it a lot. I do not, I'm sorry, monetary economics is just not my strong suit. So I cannot intelligently say anything that Daniel has not already said. But I definitely refer to it a lot. But I don't know that I have the tools to like either critique or add to it right now. But I'm taking a monetary class in the fall, so maybe then.
Tell us about Bitcoin privilege.
Bitcoin privilege. Bitcoin privilege is a thing. People need to get used to it. So yeah, that's kind of like in the post-Bitcoin world where like the value creators like get to keep their value and not apologize for it. Like Bitcoin is a tool for that. Unless, I don't know, some countervailing force like physically restrains people, I don't see a way to get around with that. And I think there's going to be a lot of really upset think piecing about it as more people realize that. But I don't know, they're going to do that no matter what.
Any other questions?
Do you think Bitcoin's going to grow more in emerging markets eventually, more than in the United States and Europe?
Oh yeah, definitely emerging markets. The U.S. Just a joke. Like, I mean, my bias for a long time has been like, well, of course the U.S. is important, and in the day-to-day, it is to me. But I mean, no. Like most of the money to be made will be made, I think, in China or other developing economies. But I don't know. It'll be a nice like band-aid for Europe and the U.S. I don't know if they deserve it, but yeah.
Well, I really appreciated your article. I really enjoyed it. I liked it, favored it, and retweeted it.
Oh, the trifecta. Thank you. Well, great. If you guys don't have any other questions, we don't need to just sit and look at each other. But I really appreciated the opportunity to talk to you guys. And yeah, I was really flattered by the invitation. So thank you.
Thanks a lot for joining us. And we'll definitely share this out so that all the people who didn't get to be here live can see it too.
Cool. Love you guys. All right. Well,